Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are unpacking something really wild, the 1908 Tunguska Event.
Yeah, it is easily one of the most baffling events in modern history.
Right. So our mission today, and we're drawing from excerpts of this fascinating article called Siberia's Silent Fire, The Mystery of the Tunguska Airburst, is to really break down this explosion.
And it was a massive explosion.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
We want to look at the terrifying science behind the blast and, explore what it actually reveals about our planet's extreme vulnerability.
Which is a lot, as we'll see.
Exactly. So to set the stage for you, just imagine it is the morning of June 30th, 1908.
A very normal summer morning.
Yeah, and you are deep in the remote Siberian wilderness, right near the Tunguska River, and suddenly, with absolutely no warning whatsoever, this massive blast detonates over the forest.
And we're talking about a blast estimated to be hundreds of times stronger than the Hiroshima atomic bomb.
Which is just, it's hard to even wrap your head around that scale. It flattens nearly 80 million trees.
Across 2,000 square kilometers.
It's total apocalyptic devastation. But here is the catch, the thing that breaks every rule of physics you'd instinctively expect.
The missing crater.
Yes. Despite this immense earth-shattering detonation, there was absolutely zero crater left behind.
And that missing physical footprint is really the core of the anomaly here.
Right.
We are analyzing an event that unleashed anywhere from 10 to 15 megatons of kinetic energy, yet it left no impact site and no definitive fragments.
It's basically a locked-room mystery.
Exactly, but on a planetary scale.
The witness accounts from that morning are just terrifying in their sheer scale.
They really are. The descriptions are incredible.
The source text talks about people who are hundreds of miles away and they look up and see the morning sky suddenly erupting into fire.
Imagine seeing that back in 1908.
I would think the world was ending. They described this blazing object tearing across the atmosphere, and they said it was visibly brighter than the sun itself.
And that visual, of something outshining the sun, that is critical.
Why is that?
Because it tells us about the extreme velocity and the immense friction involved as the object was interacting with our atmosphere.
Oh, wow. So it's burning that hot just from hitting the air.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And just moments after that blinding flash, the blast wave hit the ground.
And man, what a wave it was. People were physically thrown off their feet from unbelievable distances.
Right, windows were shattering in distant villages.
Yeah, and then you have those 80 million trees flattened across the landscape. It's almost like a colossal cosmic game of bowling where the trees are just tiny matchsticks.
That is a vivid way to picture it, yeah.
But here's the detail from the article that really tripped me up. The source notes that right at the epicenter of this massive blast, the trees didn't actually fall over.
No, they didn't.
They were stripped completely bare of their bark and their branches, but the trunks were left standing straight up.
Like a forest of giant telephone poles.
Okay, let's unpack this, because how does an explosion flatten a forest outward but leave the trees right in the middle standing straight up?
It seems entirely counterintuitive, I know.
Right. If a 15 megaton bomb goes off above a forest, wouldn't the sheer heat and force just vaporize the trees in the center? Or at least crush them into sawdust?
You would think so, but it is actually the defining physical signature of a downward blast wave.
A downward blast wave?
Yeah. Imagine a sphere of extreme pressure expanding outward in all directions from a point high up in the air.
Okay, I'm picturing a giant bubble expanding in the sky.
Right. And when the very bottom of that sphere hits the ground directly below it, the force vector is pointing straight down into the soil.
Oh, I see. So kind of like pressing down on the plunger of a French press.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like the pressure pushes straight down into the coffee grounds first, before the fluid tries to escape outward and up the sides.
That is a fantastic way to visualize it, because the force is traveling perfectly vertically at that specific center point. It strips and shears all the fragile lateral branches off the trees.
But the trunks survive.
Yeah. Yes, the vertical column of the trunk can actually withstand that downward compression. It basically just gets driven down into the dirt like a nail.
That is wild.
But then, as that sphere of pressure continues to expand outward from the center, the angle of the blast wave hitting the ground changes.
Ah, so it starts hitting the trees further away from a side angle.
Exactly. And that side angle is what pushes them over horizontally.
So the flattened trees radiating outward combined with those standing stripped trunks in the center, that's the key.
Yes, that specific pattern is the geological receipt. It proves the explosion didn't happen on the ground.
It is the physical proof of an aerial detonation.
Precisely.
But, I mean, proving it happened in the sky doesn't explain where the object went.
No, it doesn't, and that became the real mystery.
Because the physical devastation on the ground was monumental. But investigators wouldn't even realize the extent of the missing evidence for years.
Right, we have to remember the context of the era and the geography.
Yeah, the sheer isolation of this region is just endless Siberian forest and unforgiving swamps. So scientific investigation was heavily delayed.
It took over a decade for researchers to actually mount a proper expedition and hack their way through that dense, swampy terrain.
And they were probably expecting to find something massive, right?
Oh, definitely. They were expecting to find a massive crater, maybe an iron meteorite the size of a large building.
And they finally arrive, and there's just nothing.
Nothing.
No crater, no obvious impact gouge in the Earth, not a single definitive piece of space rock.
Just this vast, eerie graveyard of petrified wooden poles.
Which has to be so incredibly frustrating for a scientist.
Beyond frustrating. But they did, however, have the benefit of interviewing local witnesses.
People who were still deeply traumatized by the event.
Yes. And those witness accounts provided the next layer of the puzzle.
Like the sounds they heard, right?
Exactly. Beyond the blinding fireball, people recalled hearing sounds like heavy artillery fire moments before the actual blast wave arrived.
That stuck out to me, too. The horizon is literally splitting open with light, and then you hear artillery fire.
The auditory details are a massive clue here.
What do you mean?
Those artillery sounds indicate sonic booms.
Oh, because it's moving so fast.
Yes. It means whatever was up there was breaking the sound barrier multiple times and likely fracturing or fragmenting violently in the atmosphere before the final catastrophic detonation.
That is so intense. But the effects weren't just localized to those Siberian witnesses.
No, not at all.
The object messed with the atmosphere on a global scale. The source text mentions that for days after the blast, night skies were glowing unusually bright across Europe and Asia.
The midnight suns.
Yeah! It was so bright that people are actually reading newspapers outdoors at midnight without any artificial light.
It sounds like fiction, but it's well documented.
But how does an explosion in remote Siberia light up the sky over London?
It comes down to what happens when you inject massive amounts of matter into the upper atmosphere.
Okay, I'm tracking.
The object didn't just explode, it vaporized. This created a colossal plume of microscopic dust, ice, and gaseous debris that shot way up into the stratosphere.
So all that pulverized material spreads out globally.
Yes, and because it is so high up, much higher than normal weather clouds, that layer of dust is still catching the sun's rays.
Even after the sun has set for people on the ground?
Exactly. Even after the sun is set below the horizon from the perspective of someone standing on the surface.
Oh, like noctilucent clouds.
Yes, very similar.
The ground is in complete darkness, but the dust high up is still bouncing sunlight back down to the surface.
That is the exact mechanism. The sheer volume of that debris scattering the sunlight illuminated the night sky across entire continents for days.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Because of the laws of thermodynamics, 15 megatons of kinetic energy doesn't just evaporate.
Right, energy cannot be destroyed.
It had to transfer into the atmosphere. The energy transfer makes perfect sense. But pairing the witness accounts of a glowing, splitting sky and sonic booms with a total lack of physical fragments on the ground, it creates a genuine anomaly.
This raises an important question, doesn't it?
Yeah, like how does something massive enough to alter the global atmosphere just vanish? You have an immense transferred energy, but the rock responsible for it vanishes without a trace.
It creates a massive evidence vacuum. And we know what happens when there's an evidence vacuum.
Oh, yeah. When science cannot immediately produce a physical object to explain apocalyptic destruction, human imagination rushes in to fill the void.
And the theories that spawn from this uncertainty over the decades are genuinely wild.
They are so fun, honestly.
Yeah.
Without a rock to study, people started grasping at anything to explain the invisible bomb.
Right.
You had theories about alien spacecraft accidentally exploding above Earth.
Early sci-fi writers pitched stories about extraterrestrial nuclear reactors malfunctioning in the atmosphere.
Which, if you think about it, was a very creative way for people to grapple with a nuclear-level blast before the broader public even fully understood nuclear physics.
That's a great point. They were looking at the effects of a massive thermal and kinetic wave and trying to reverse engineer a cause.
Then you had the fringe physics theories.
Oh, yes.
People blaming antimatter collisions in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Or mini black holes passing entirely through the Earth, entering in Siberia and exiting out the other side.
The black hole theory is particularly inventive.
But my personal favorite was the rumor that it was a secret experiment by Nikola Tesla.
Of course, it always comes back to Tesla.
Always. The idea was that he somehow triggered a massive wireless energy discharge from his experiments in New York, and it accidentally cooked a chunk of Siberia.
It is a fascinating reflection of the anxieties of the 20th century.
How so?
As new concepts like antimatter, black holes, or wireless energy transmission were theorized, Tunguska became the ultimate blank canvas.
Oh, I see. People projected their fears of the unknown scientific frontier right onto that missing crater.
Exactly. We are naturally trying to impartially report on all these theories, but modern science has largely dismissed them.
Right, in favor of a much more violent yet mathematically sound explanation.
The airburst theory.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The idea is that a massive space object, likely a stony meteor or an icy comet, entered Earth's atmosphere at cosmic speeds.
But it detonated several kilometers midair because of extreme atmospheric pressure and heat.
So it never reached the surface.
Never hit the ground.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. I was trying to wrap my head around how a solid rock, maybe the size of a 15-story building, just explodes from hitting air.
It is hard to picture. Air feels like nothing to us.
Right, but think about doing a belly flop from a really high diving board.
Okay.
If you just jump into a pool feet first from the edge, the water parts easily around you.
Right.
But if you jump from 30 feet up and hit the water flat at high speed?
That water stops behaving like a soft fluid.
Exactly. It feels exactly like a concrete wall.
And the fluid dynamics of the atmosphere act the exact same way at hypersonic speeds.
So this rock is hitting Earth's atmosphere, which is a fluid just like water, but it is hitting it at tens of thousands of miles an hour.
It hits that wall of air.
Yeah, and the pressure builds up instantaneously in front of it. The heat spikes to thousands of degrees, and the object's structural integrity simply fails.
It violently disintegrates before it ever reaches the bottom of the pool, so to speak.
And that belly flop analogy perfectly explains the missing evidence.
What's fascinating here is how well it accounts for everything we observed.
Because if the object violently disintegrates and vaporizes 5 to 10 kilometers up in the sky, you aren't going to get a crater.
No, you're going to get a massive shockwave of displaced air and thermal energy traveling downward.
Which drives those trees into the ground like telephone poles.
And you're going to get a massive plume of dust injected into the stratosphere to create those midnight suns.
And we actually know this happens because the source brings up a terrifying modern parallel.
The Chelyabinsk meteor.
Yes, in 2013. That was a meteor that exploded mid-air over Russia.
It injured over 1,000 people.
Mostly from the shockwaves shattering glass across the city, and that was just a tiny fraction of the size of whatever hit Tunguska.
Chelyabinsk was a crucial event for atmospheric science.
Because it proved the mechanics of an airburst on camera for the whole world to see.
Exactly. It validated the physics we apply to Tunguska, but it also highlights the lingering mystery.
Right, because with Chelyabinsk, researchers eventually found meteorites.
They recovered fragments from the frozen lakes.
But with Tunguska,
despite having a rock-solid scientific model for how it exploded, the total lack of definitively identified fragments means we still don't know for certain what it was.
which is crazy to me. Was it a highly fragile, rocky asteroid that pulverized completely?
Or was it a comet made almost entirely of ice and dust that flashed into vapor? The what remains elusive.
So we have a solid explanation for how a space rock can explode without leaving a crater. But when you look at the scars still left on the landscape today, this stops being just a cool physics puzzle.
It really does.
It stops being about air pressure and fluid dynamics, and it becomes a really chilling warning.
It shifts from a historical curiosity to a planetary reality check.
Because even today, well over a century later, the Tunguska region is still eerie. The source mentions that satellite images still show the scars within the forest patterns.
It's a permanent reminder.
And researchers are out there right now still studying the soil anomalies, still analyzing tree growth and microscopic evidence, searching for final answers.
Science never stops investigating.
But reading about the sheer scale of the devastation brings up this massive what if for me.
The timeline of the Earth's rotation.
Yes. If this invisible object had arrived just a few hours later, the rotation of the Earth would have moved the crosshairs from an empty Siberian swamp directly over a major metropolitan area.
The devastation would have been unimaginable.
If the Earth had rotated just a bit more, that 15-megaton airburst would have happened over St. Petersburg or even London.
Millions of people could have died instantly.
Humanity was protected strictly by geography and luck. Which makes me wonder, how should you and I and everyone listening process walking around completely unaware of this cosmic shooting gallery?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it requires a shift in how we view our environment.
What do you mean?
Well, we tend to walk around feeling like the Earth is a closed, safe, isolated system. But the universe gave Earth a stark reminder that morning in 1908 of how truly vulnerable life is.
Yeah, that bubble was definitely burst.
As the source notes, enormous objects move silently through the darkness of space all the time.
Just buzzing past us.
Right. The vast, overwhelming majority of them pass by us harmlessly or burn up as small shooting stars. But occasionally the orbital math lines up and one reaches us.
And we are fundamentally at the mercy of the cosmos.
We are part of a very active dynamic solar system, and Tunguska is the geological proof of that vulnerability.
Well, to quickly recap the journey we've been on in this deep dive, we started with a blinding flash over the Siberian wilderness.
A flash brighter than the sun.
Right. And we unpacked the paradox of 80 million flattened trees with no crater, exploring the downward force of an aerial blast.
The telephone pole trees.
Yeah, such a wild visual. And then we looked at how pulverized rock created midnight suns across Europe, which led to some incredibly wild theories involving Nikola Tesla and black holes.
Human nature at its finest.
Exactly. But eventually, we arrived at the terrifying, mathematically sound reality of a 15-megaton mid-air airburst.
A cosmic belly flop.
A cosmic belly flop that left scars we can still see from space today.
And a mystery regarding the exact nature of the object that still endures.
So the next time you step outside and look up at a beautiful, peaceful night sky, I want you to remember that you aren't just looking at a static painting. You are looking at an active, silent, and sometimes incredibly dangerous expanse.
I'll leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on exactly what we've learned today.
I'm ready.
We now know that a devastating city-leveling explosion can happen from the sky and leave absolutely no permanent crater or massive fragments behind.
So the evidence can just vanish?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if an airburst leaves almost no permanent geological trace, could some of the sudden unexplained collapses of ancient human cities or the ancient myths of fire from the gods actually have an undocumented airburst lost to history?